In a dramatic escalation of hostilities in the Middle East, Iran has continued its missile campaign against Israel, launching multiple KHORRAMSHAHR-4 ballistic missiles targeting major Israeli cities Tel Aviv and Haifa. The attack marks one of the most significant escalations in the ongoing conflict, drawing global attention and raising fears of a broader regional war. This article provides a detailed overview of the recent missile strikes, their implications, the military and political context, and the evolving security situation. The attack, a new phase in Iran's missile campaign. Over the past 48 hours, Iranian forces have fired a salvo of 4 KHORRAMSHAHR-4 ballistic missiles targeting Israel's two largest cities, Tel Aviv on the Mediterranean coast and Haifa in the north. According to military sources, all 4 missiles successfully hit their intended targets, causing significant structural damage, widespread panic, and civilian casualties. The KHORRAMSHAHR-4 missile is a long-range, solid-fueled ballistic missile capable of delivering conventional or potentially non-conventional warheads over distances exceeding 2,000 kilometers. This extended range allows Iran to strike deep into Israeli territory with precision. The successful hits in Tel Aviv and Haifa demonstrate the missile's effectiveness and represent a new level of threat to Israeli security. The impact in Tel Aviv and Haifa Tel Aviv, Israel's economic and technological hub, suffered extensive damage from multiple missile impacts. Residential neighborhoods, business districts, and critical infrastructure such as power grids and communication networks were hit. Fires broke out in several locations, and emergency services scrambled to evacuate civilians and contain the destruction. Haifa, an important northern port city, also bore the brunt of the missile strikes. Industrial zones and residential areas were damaged, disrupting port operations and local livelihoods. The psychological impact on the population has been profound, with sirens blaring throughout the cities and citizens forced to seek shelter amid the chaos. Casualty reports are still being updated, but preliminary figures suggest dozens of injuries and several fatalities. Hospitals in both cities are overwhelmed with patients suffering from blast injuries, smoke inhalation, and shock. Authorities have declared states of emergency, mobilizing security forces to maintain order and assist in rescue efforts. Military and strategic context: Iran's missile strikes come amid rising tensions following recent Israeli military actions in Gaza and against Iranian-backed militias in Lebanon and Syria. Tehran has repeatedly vowed to retaliate against Israeli operations it views as aggression against its allies and interests in the region. The deployment of KHORRAMSHAHR-4 missiles represents a significant upgrade from Iran's earlier missile arsenal, which included shorter-range and less precise systems. The KHORRAMSHAHR-4's solid fuel engine allows for quicker launch readiness and improved accuracy, complicating Israel's missile defense efforts. Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, which has been highly effective in intercepting short-range rockets, faced unprecedented challenges against these long-range ballistic missiles. Although some intercepts were reported, the sheer volume and speed of the missiles overwhelmed the system, leading to multiple successful strikes. Israel's response and retaliation. In response to the missile attacks, Israel launched immediate airstrikes targeting missile launch sites and command centers in Iran-backed territories in Syria and southern Lebanon. The Israeli Defense Forces, IDF, stated that the retaliatory strikes aimed to degrade Iran's missile capabilities and deter further aggression. Prime Minister and Defense Minister of Israel declared a state of high alert nationwide, mobilizing reserve forces and reinforcing air defense batteries across the country. Israel's intelligence services intensified efforts to track and disrupt Iranian missile supply chains and manufacturing facilities. Regional and international reactions. The missile strikes and subsequent retaliation have heightened fears of a wider regional conflict involving multiple actors. Neighboring countries have expressed concern over the spillover effects of the violence, with some calling for calm and restraint. The United States condemned the Iranian missile attacks, reaffirming its commitment to Israel's security and warning Tehran of severe consequences if the aggression continues. European Union officials also urged all parties to de-escalate tensions and return to diplomatic channels to avoid further bloodshed. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session to address the crisis, but divisions among members on how to respond have complicated efforts to issue a unified statement. The humanitarian toll. Beyond the immediate military and political consequences, the missile attacks have created a serious humanitarian crisis in Israel's urban centers. Thousands of civilians have been displaced as buildings were destroyed or rendered unsafe. Emergency shelters are operating at capacity, and there are concerns about shortages of medical supplies and clean water. Psychological trauma among residents, particularly children, is mounting as the threat of missile strikes looms daily. Community organizations and mental health professionals are mobilizing resources to support affected populations. Broader implications for Middle East stability. Iran's use of advanced ballistic missiles against Israeli cities marks a troubling new chapter in the Middle East conflict. It challenges long-standing deterrence dynamics and raises questions about the future of regional security architecture. The strikes may embolden other Iranian-backed groups to intensify their operations against Israel, while provoking harsher Israeli military responses. The risk of miscalculation and uncontrolled escalation remains high. Furthermore, the attacks complicate ongoing diplomatic efforts aimed at reviving negotiations related to Iran's nuclear program. Western powers, particularly the US and European countries, face increased pressure to balance sanctions and diplomacy amid growing violence. Conclusion: Iran's recent KHORRAMSHAHR-4 missile attacks on Tel Aviv and Haifa represent a significant escalation in the ongoing conflict with Israel. The successful strikes have inflicted material damage, human suffering, and geopolitical tensions that reverberate across the Middle East and beyond. As Israel responds with military retaliation and heightened security measures, the international community watches nervously, calling for restraint and dialogue to prevent a devastating regional war. The path ahead remains uncertain, with the potential for further violence or, hopefully, eventual de-escalation through diplomatic engagement.